Appellate Court Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson is President Biden's pick to replace Stephen Breyer on the U.S. Supreme Court. Senate confirmation hearings for Jackson began today with opening statements on both sides of the aisle and from Jackson herself, who alluded to the historic nature of her nomination.
I stand on the shoulders of so many who have come before me, including Judge Constance Baker Motley, who was the first African-American woman to be appointed to the federal bench and with whom I share a birthday. And like Judge Motley, I have dedicated my career to ensuring that the words engraved on the front of the Supreme Court building, "Equal justice under law," are a reality and not just an ideal.
And joining us now to talk about the hearings are Kalia Coleman, the former president of the Black Women Lawyers Association of Greater Chicago, Amanda Savage, an associate political science professor at Loyola University Chicago, and Audra Wilson, president and CEO of the Shriver Center on Poverty Law. Welcome all of you to Chicago tonight. Amanda, these hearings usually contain a lot of pontificating from senators and innocuous answers from the nominee like, quote, "I plan to call the balls and strikes." Is that what you anticipate in the coming days?
Yes, absolutely. Nominees are expected to not give straight answers. That's kind of been the tradition for the last 30 years. This nominee in particular will be very careful about a lot of the politically divisive issues that the senators are going to ask about, not only because it's tradition, but because the court is hearing a lot of those issues right now. So the court has pending cases on abortion, it has pending cases on immigration law, on gerrymandering, a lot of the issues that senators might want to focus on in the abstract. Judge Jackson has a very strong case for not answering because they're before the court as we speak.
Right, lots of issues before the court. And Audra, one of the things that Republicans have brought up is Judge Jackson's background as a public defender. Do you anticipate lots of questioning along those lines?
Possibly, yes. The fact of the matter is that if you're looking at the number of public defenders that have been nominated for federal judges, I read a statistic that said 318 as of April 2021, 318 former prosecutors were sitting as federal judges, which is over 1/3 of the 880 across the country. And then conversely, the smallest fraction of those who became federal judges, and let alone to the Supreme Court, were former criminal defense attorneys and former public defenders who only accounted for about 7% of all judges. There has been historically a bias towards prosecutors. And interestingly, prosecutors are not subjected to the same sort of scrutiny as public defenders, nor are corporate attorneys as far as their impartiality. But public defenders have always been scrutinized much more harshly, and there's no reason to think that her record is not going to be dissected as a public defender.
And Democrats have pointed to this as a positive, talking about the breadth of her experience today. Vermont Senator Patrick Leahy said that she would, quote, "have a mastery of our justice system." Take a listen.
Judge Jackson's nomination, of course, is historic in more ways than one. Her nomination, pending a confirmation by the Senate, will bring us one step closer to having a Supreme Court that is more reflective of our nation. One where diversity of race and gender, background, education, and experience allow all Americans to look to their court and see in its justices a reflection of the American people.
Kalia, do you look at this diversity of background experience as an asset or a hindrance as we go through these hearings?
I absolutely believe that the diversity of experience is an asset. In the 233-year history, we have never had a Black woman on the United States Supreme Court. You know, this is a land where our creed is that there's equal opportunity, equal justice for everyone. And it's hard to imagine that you have the highest court of the land that is missing a very, very, very important voice, and that is the voice of the Black woman, the minority woman. Judge Jackson's experience as a Black woman, her experience as a former federal defender, her unique understanding of the criminal justice system and how Black and brown people are adversely affected and impacted in a very unique way in the criminal justice system is a voice that needs to be present on the Supreme Court. Oftentimes, the Supreme Court, highest court in the land, they deal with issues affecting the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the Sixth Amendment. And when those issues get to the Supreme Court, they're in that gray area where you need those diverse perspectives, someone who fundamentally understands and can see issues and add a unique voice to the conversation in order to ensure that as decisions are being made, precedent that is set that will have longstanding impact, that as part of that deliberation, that every voice was actually uniquely captured and heard. So I definitely think that her diverse experience will be an absolute asset to the court.
And Amanda Savage, we brought up the politics at play in these hearings. Both parties tend to play to their respective political bases. So how does that affect the strategies that you expect Democrats and Republicans to employ in their questioning?
Well, I think the Democrats' job is pretty easy, both because Judge Jackson's nomination is historic and she's got these stellar credentials and she's a very easy sell on why she should be a Supreme Court justice, and they have the votes. And so at the end of the day, it's exceedingly unlikely that Judge Jackson is not confirmed to the U.S. Supreme Court. Republicans' job is going to be much harder because she's such a stellar nominee and she'll be hard to attack. So what we saw Republicans do today is not make arguments against Judge Jackson or her record, but instead they made process arguments. They hearkened back to Judge Kavanaugh's confirmation hearings and the objections that Democrats were making to Justice Barrett's confirmation hearings of the senators were so focused on process and so unfair to the nominee. And I think that indicates that they're trying to give themselves cover in the coming days to make arguments against Judge Jackson along the lines of what their political base wants to hear, and along the lines of what they can talk about given her record, which is that she's soft on crime, which I think we're going to see as like a central focus of Republicans in the midterms. And I think that this all has to be contextualized in the fact that there's an election coming up soon. And so Republicans are going to try to attack her on being a public defender, for example.
Certainly a lot of politics at play. And Audra Wilson, aside from her background, when you look at her judicial rulings, do you get a sense of an overarching judicial philosophy?
I mean, yes, I mean, this has been scrutinized a lot about her philosophy, and you could certainly pick that apart too. I mean, I think, but what you see in her decisions over and over is just, it's the perspective that she's bringing. It's the difference in perspective and experience that's reflected that has been missing, quite frankly, by not having this sort of person on the Supreme Court. And so I think this is going to be probably the most significant thing. It's important to note that she is probably one of the most scrutinized individuals in the legal profession. So before she was nominated to the Supreme Court, she had 3 confirmations to the Sentencing Commission, second time when she was nominated for a trial judgeship, a third time when she was nominated to her current judge as the federal appellate judge. So this, quite frankly, is something to what you had just mentioned before. It's going to be revolutionary, quite frankly, in watching this nomination, in the sense that having the first public defender that's going to be sitting on the Supreme Court is going to be the blueprint for how future nominations go when there are others who are coming from the non-traditional prosecutor or corporate backgrounds to ascend to the Supreme Court. So it's going to be historic in so many ways.
All right, and we will follow these historic hearings all week. And our thanks to Kalia Coleman, Amanda Savage, and Audra Wilson. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.